This is Josh Bycer from GameWisdom.com. I hope you enjoyed this Critical Thought, your daily discussion on game design. Welcome to today's Critical Thought. As before we get going, thank you definitely to 993 subscribers here on YouTube. For those of you just joining us, if you're enjoying the content, be sure to like and subscribe, because we're getting really close now to 1,000. For today's Critical Thought, we're going to be talking about the concept of loot boxes. This is going to be based on the post, which should be like right around there at this time. Loot box design has become really much a go-to mechanic and concept for free-to-play and monetized games in the last few years. Like 3-4 years ago, the popular mechanic for these kinds of games was the idea behind pay or wait or energy mechanics. For those of you who didn't play them, that of course means that you only have a limited amount of actions or things you can do at any given point, and if you want more, you either have to wait or pay like a few cents or $1, stuff like that. Now of course, no one really liked that mechanic, and probably why it has been downplayed. But in its place, we have certainly seen the rise of loot box design. And loot box, for the post and for today's Critical Thought, is essentially the option of letting the player spend a certain amount of money for a random chance at a item. Now that's the big point. Unlike buying DLC or expansions, where I put my money down, I know exactly what I'm getting. In Payday 2, for instance, if I buy a DLC, I get an itemized list of exactly what's in there. With loot boxes, you don't know what you're going to get. And when we use the term loot box, this can mean anything from treasure chests, boxes, I know that's really a stretch, comic book covers, wow, my brain just failed me once again. Anything that can basically be opened up, safes, stars, gems, forces of nature, you name it. If it can be like revealed or something like that, then chances are it could become a loot box in of itself. Now, with the Killing Floor 2 has USB sticks, crates, other pieces of data that counts, and stuff like that. But getting back to the topic, with the loot box itself, the player is spending money on either the box or a key. And this is pretty much up to the designer's discretion. It doesn't matter whether you're paying for the box or you're paying for the key, money is being exchanged. Now with some designs, the player may earn boxes or earn the ability to get these keys through playing the game. Team Fortress, of course, lets items drop at a set interval depending upon how much you play. Payday 2 has recently changed that with their save system, Killing Floor 2 as well. But when we consider most of loot box design, it's going to be built around the player spending money. Now the key trait behind the loot box, compared to just strictly buying an item, is that the loot box is always going to be cheaper because you're buying the chance for an item rather than the item itself. And this gets into some psychology here. I wish I have a hotline to my friend Jamie Madigan from Psychology of Games, because I'm sure he would love to talk about this as well. But it goes with a basic bit of human nature. If you had the choice between spending $5 on something that you want versus spending 50 cents for either a chance to get nothing, get what you're looking for, get something else, or get something even better than what you're looking for, what would you typically do? And for a lot of people, they would choose the cheaper option, because it means if I put 50 cents in, I could save $4.50 on what I wanted, or I could get something even more expensive. And that's kind of how loot boxes are built. The loot box, when they're programmed, are built on the set probability of the designer. They know exactly what the chance is that you'll get any kind of item from that box. Many loot boxes are built around having set possible options, such as with the safes in Payday 2, the crates in Team Fortress, your booster packs in Hearthstone, etc. And then they always give you the chance of getting something rare, something exclusively high value, legendary items. And a really good example of that would be of Counter-Strike Go. And now you could get like a generic knife or a generic gun skin, or you could get something super rare that you can either wear and show it off, gamble it, or of course sell it for big money on the game's economy system. And that's kind of that hook. It's almost a one-to-one of a slot machine. You go to a slot machine, you have a chance of making nothing, you can make your money back, or you could hit rich. And of course, I'm pretty sure for everyone watching this video right now, none of us have that story of going into Vegas, pulling a slot machine, and walking out with $1 million. I know I certainly don't have that. But loot boxes are built on that slot machine principle. And it's also a very powerful tool for developers because they can come with new loot boxes anytime as long as there's new content coming out. I mean, as we're talking at this moment, Blizzard's already unveiling their Christmas-themed loot boxes for Overwatch. And of course they had Halloween, the Summer Games, and I'm fairly sure they're going to have another holiday or special themed loot box in the coming months. We can talk about the skins of League of Legends, the hats and drops of Team Fortress, and again, any game that has these kinds of droppable or consumable boxes is built around this. Now, when it comes to the consumer themselves, again, depending upon who you talk to, these are either fine or the scum of the earth. Typically, if the loot boxes only work with cosmetic or non-game impacting items, it's considered okay. It's like a slap in the face as opposed to a punch in the gut. With that said, there's certainly an interesting debate regarding Overwatch. As I mentioned in the post, that Overwatch is a full retail game, but also has the monetized options of the loot boxes. But they also allow you to just simply buy items using the in-game currency. I think the only thing that is unique are the loot boxes, again, for the themed events. But I don't play Overwatch enough to really get into that. But where players really have trouble with loot box design is when it's tied to progression or in-game changing items. And this is another major facet and goes back to the concept of pay to win and the more disgusting side of microtransactions. And I have two examples I want to talk about. The first is Marvel Puzzle Quest, which I know I have mentioned here and I know I've talked about on the Perceptive podcast a few times. With Marvel Puzzle Quest, what they did, which on one hand is quite brilliant, is all your characters that you can build your teams from are based on comic book covers with different variants representing different comic books. So you may have Hawkeye Classic, Hawkeye Modern, then there was like 3 or 4 different variations of Black Widow at the time, etc. And then each one of these comic book characters, or each one of these characters, has 3 or 4 special abilities and may have a passive, stuff like that. And then those abilities are linked to basically different versions of those comic book covers. So you may have Classic Hawkeye, but then that will have one skill attached to that cover. You have another one that has another skill, etc. The only ways to improve your characters are you not only need to find their exact comic book, but you also need to get the specific ones for the skill that you're trying to level up. And the character's overall level is based on the number of those comic book covers that you have. I know it could be a little bit confusing at that description, but here's the problem. The only ways to get those covers are to spend in-game or premium currency on a random chance to get those cards or get those comics, or to spend premium currency simply upgrading the respective skill. So that's a lot of either real money or luck that you need to get progress going. And the problem is, if you don't do that, those characters are useless because their skills and their actual overall health and damage are tied to their level. And as you can probably guess, the super rare legendary characters are going to cost a lot more to level up compared to your generic, gray scale comic book covers. And if you want to win tournaments and beat the high level grades and get better stuff, of course you're going to spend money. And recently I tried out Orcs Must Die Unchained, the free-to-play take on Orcs Must Die. I streamed a little bit, and I think we'll make a video on it soon. And they have restructured their free-to-play monetization models as they're trying to bring people back and keep their fan base, their audience from shrinking. And what they do is your traps, which you use to deal with the orcs, you can level them up. But the only way to do that is you need trap experience. And the only way to get that is to open up their loot boxes and get the experience that way. But of course, one card or one item's worth of experience is not enough. You may have to open up multiple loot boxes and get multiple versions of that drop in order to level that card up. And the only way you're going to really stand a chance in the higher levels against the stronger orcs and the more dangerous enemies is, of course, to do the loot box. And again, this is where it's a very devious, it's very brilliant and it's very evil. It's almost Breevil, if you will, this kind of model. Because when you're starting out, it's not really that important. But once they get you hooked and you're trying to get, the higher accolades and the better challenges, then it's going to come back and get you. And like I said, I'm not a fan of games that are built around this kind of loot box design. I can somewhat accept it if it is purely cosmetic, but it's still very much hitting the same motivators that we see with slot machines and traditional gambling. Now, like with the pay-or-wait mechanics, it's still too soon to say if loot boxes are going to still be here in 3 to 4 years from now. If you missed the news, it has been mentioned that China has recently put a law into place that developers must explicitly state the probability chances of what the drops are when you're using a loot box, because it is very much akin to gambling. So what that means is they're basically going to say that if you open up this box, you have a 5% chance of getting this kind of item, 7%, 8%, a 1% of this, stuff like that. Almost similar to when they started putting the calories of fast food items that's now on their menus. But we're going to wrap things up here. Again, loot box design has become a major point of the free-to-play market. It can be seen as a win-win in some cases. The developer gets money and the consumer is guaranteed an item. In like Hearthstone's case, if they can't use the card, they can of course disenchant it for the I don't even remember the in-game resource. What was it? Dust, fairy dust, I think. And then that can be used to get a card of their choice. But again, when you combine progression with something that's built on probability, it can lead to a very imbalanced skill curve. Like what we talked about with Minion Masters with some of those videos. I got really lucky with getting a legendary early on, and that has certainly propelled me up ranked. And the same would be said of a game like Hearthstone. If you get lucky and get those legendaries or those cards for those specific decks that you've seen, you can certainly have a leg up compared to someone who is strictly just going by pure luck. And of course, if pure luck doesn't work, money can certainly be used. Now, I know I always like to ask this, and I'm pretty sure I know what the answer is going to be, but for those of you watching, what do you think about loot box design? Love it? Hate it? Utterly despise it? Let me know in the comments below. And more importantly, if you can think of a way to make loot boxes favorable. Is there a way to make this a good mechanic or a less monetized or less gambling based mechanic? Let me know in the comments below. But otherwise, we're going to end things here. As always, I'm Josh Bycer from GameWisdom.com, where we examine the art and science of games. Thank you for watching today's Critical Thought, and certainly thank you for liking and subscribing and all that good stuff. I'll be back tomorrow with more great content here, as well as on GameWisdom.com, and there's a good chance we may be celebrating 1,000 subscribers really soon. But until then, I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoy it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and of course share with your friends. It always helps out. For daily posts on all manner of game design and industry topics, check out game-wisdom.com. To support the site and everything that I do, be sure to check out the Patreon campaign. If we can hit goals, it will mean more content for everyone to enjoy, and I'll be able to support myself and my household. If you want to follow me, you can find me on Twitter at GW for updates throughout the day and random thoughts from me. And lastly, you can find me on Twitch right over there at GW for daily streams most nights around 10 Eastern. Thanks again for watching the video, and be sure to check out more great content coming to the Game Wisdom channel real soon.